with me, I have a very special guest, and this is Susan Winter. And just to give a brief introduction of who I have with me here, this is someone who has been on Oprah. She is a best-selling author and relationship expert, and she has written a number of books, one of which I've read, Allowing Magnificence. And from what I can remember, because I read it a number of years ago now, this is basically about self-knowledge and for someone to understand themselves better. And then there's another book that Susan has written. This is not one that I have read, because this is older women, younger men, and I think this is mainly aimed for women. And Susan also specializes in evolutionary forms of loving partnership and higher thinking. She writes, speaks, and coaches on assessing our inherent perfection in life and love. And to top it off, Susan has also been featured in numerous magazines, papers, and she's been on all kinds of TV and radio stations. And just to give a brief introduction on how this call came about, I would like to touch upon a moment in my life when I was going through a challenging time in a relationship, and I ended up looking out for information, for guidance on what I could do. This challenge was basically about hot and cold behavior, as I later came to understand. The article of Susan's I found was called Hot and Cold. Following me being very impressed with the article, I ended up leaving a comment, and after that, Susan here got in touch and expressed her appreciation for my writing as well. She asked me to become a contributing editor to her site. And of course, it didn't take me long to accept the offer. So not only did Susan comment on my writing, she went a step further. Before long, my articles were featured on her site. I must say this is a proud moment for me. What I also thought as well, which was, can sound kind of funny, but I thought that if I was a woman, I would be writing what Susan was writing or something similar. And this is partly because she is a purist and her primary intention is to assist others and to make a difference. So there is no fluff or hype involved. It is pure information. Just to finish off, from that moment that we came into contact with each other, the support of my work has continued, and there has been times when I've looked towards Susan for guidance, and she has been happy to offer it to me. It is often said that it only takes one person to make a difference, and Susan has definitely made a difference in my life. So that is how we have crossed paths.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you. That's so sweet. You know, I had just started an active website. I knew nothing about the internet age. I'd written my books by hand. I hardly knew how to use a computer. And I got one of those shareaholic buttons where, you have an article and somebody can write.
Yeah.
Yours was like the first, no, I don't mean all the ones. I had really intelligent readers, but yours was the first substantial commentary where I went, oh my goodness, this guy is really saying something profound. So I wrote back and thanked you. And then we got to know each other because I learned that you were a prolific writer. I think your website at the time, it was like something like 25,000 articles to date. I mean, I'm a prolific, I've got tons of content. You've got tons of content. It was just like content. And then you started putting your books out.
Yeah.
And it was one book after the next. And I know I did a lot of reviewing of your books, but you delve into the deep psychology of why we do what we do to try and unlock those, you know, auto reactive pieces and just enlighten everybody. So thank you for your immense contribution. And it's been a very nice friendship, I should say, right?
Yeah, 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 exactly. So I've got a number of questions here, and I wanted to provide you with questions I thought you would be able to answer. I didn't want to catch you off guard or go into anything too deep about mechanics of why things happen. So I've basically got a number of questions here, and if we go over,
Okay.
as in we run out, I can think of some others. So the first question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to have a meaningful relationship? So they're single, they're looking for something a bit more. Perhaps they've just been wasting time, or perhaps that's what they feel.
You know, it sounds so rudimentary, but it is so commonly overlooked. Know who you are as best as you can at that time and space and juncture in your life. That will inform you as to what you want. So if you know what you want, even if it's, I don't know what I want to explore. If you can have a goal and be able to state it to any prospective mate, you're halfway there. The rest is selection process. But surprisingly, most people don't ask themselves. They do it the opposite way around, like they throw themselves out into a sea of people and try and figure out who wants them. Then they start chasing to contort themselves to pretend to be the person that this person is seeking. And that's just not a foundation for functionality. So know what you want, try to articulate it. Don't be afraid to speak your truth at any moment in time, whatever it is. Basic, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is it, isn't it? Clarity. Once the clarity is there, then it's a bit like going shopping, isn't it? Well, what are you looking for? You've got it down, and then you can say, right, this shop, no, not it. You go into the shop, the one
Yeah.
you think is right, no, not that, not that.
Yeah,
This,
yeah.
let's try it on, and it's like that, isn't it?
Exactly. And sometimes that's where it gets frustrating. Sometimes people are exceedingly clear on what they want and they're not finding it. And then they run up against another roadblock. Okay, like I know what I want. I know who I am. I'm looking. Why isn't it happening? My friend Sheila has it. She's not involved. My friend Hank always has women around him. What am I doing wrong? Am I too evolved? What's the problem? And sometimes you get to a point where whether it's dating, romance, or even your golf game, because I was just talking to my neighbor this morning, you can want it so badly you get in your own way. Sometimes it's okay, just take a breath, relax, let yourself just decompress, have fun, and boom, it's there. Normally, that's what happens.
Yeah, what do they say? You can have anything you want as long as you don't want it. Yeah, it's like that, isn't it? It's the attachment that
Yeah.
creates
Yeah.
the
The friends.
blockage.
Yeah. The friends. Yeah. So that I just think that we have entered a unique time period, and I'm speaking to your audience from the US, but I have a huge international audience. 60% of my client base has always been international. And I think that's because I've had so much press in the UK and India and Australia and Germany, and it doesn't matter. So I'm everywhere. But it seems to be that we are in a general time period of dating confusion just right off the bat, that people are having a harder time finding partnership and they're having a harder time retaining partnership. So the one common factor that I see, independent of where people are located, is that you must know who you are and what you want and try to articulate that as cleanly as possible, and then keep in communication with your partner.
Yeah, it's the paradox of choice, isn't it? There's so many options, there's so many apps, there's so many places where
That's
someone can go, but it's like, okay, but there's too much, and
yeah.
it's still a challenge. And then
So
people kind of harp on to a time in the past when it seemed a lot simpler.
Well, because the protocol was put in place. So the protocol was you single out one person, you gain their attention, you seek private time with them, you make your play, you earn their affection, and then you're in partnership. Nowadays, when you've removed sexuality from the relationship model and it's become a separate action that has about as much meaning as getting a cup of coffee or tea around the corner shop, it has kind of lost its way because people are inherently forgetting that, okay, sex and love are two vastly different things, but human beings, healthy human beings, are integrated. And so it's hard to make it not mean something. And it's hard to be in the most intimate form of communication with another person and have it be meaningless. It has an impact, and rightly so. We want it to. We don't. The goal is not to deaden ourselves in order to not be hurt. The goal that I see in America, and especially with a lot of women, has been to disassociate from their bodies so that they can withstand the treadmill of prospective mates that take them on, a kind of a trial basis and then dump them. And so this is why I think we all need to take a step back, reassess what we want, be exceedingly clear about it, and set our own rules of engagement. Just because this is what's happening out here doesn't mean this is what's happening for me. And if they pass you by, let them go. Have some standards, whatever they are, and please don't think I'm trying to harken back to a time period that is, limited, or where you can't express yourself, because I'm not about that. I'm about men and women enjoying, all of the fruits of life, touch, taste, feel, experience everything you want without shame, without regret, without whatever guilt. But be mindful of the fact that whether you know it or not, you have an impact on somebody's life and they have an impact on yours. So, kind of it would behoove us all to be a little bit more conscious of our interactions, right?
Yeah, very well said. I mean, you're talking about this, Susan, about basically creating your own way of doing things and not following on to how
Yeah.
other people do things. And I see this a lot in your work, and I think this is it. It's about following a path that is right for the individual, not they're doing this, so I better do that too. And I think an important point as well is that, as you say, it's almost like the dating process can cause someone to basically become divided
Yes.
from themselves.
Yes.
And then through doing that, they're not really in the right frame of being. I was going to say right frame of mind because that's up here, but they're not really in the right frame of being to then have a relationship, because they're too probably numb and disconnected in some cases. So then it makes it hard for them to achieve what they actually want to achieve.
And probably be happy in the process. Because, so the unique thing that's beautiful about this time period is that there's a lot of more latitude to be yourself. Whatever you are, whatever you're into, it's cool. And so this is why we're glad that we broke the mold of it has to be like this, and partnership looks like this, and it's between a man and a woman, and they have kids. And, it's great that everybody now gets a chance to express themselves. But isn't it odd that sometimes when we take that into the realm of romance, we end up, again, kind of selling ourselves out to become what is in vogue at the time without checking in. But, exploration is the way you learn, right? You try something, you're like,
Yeah.
I don't like Indian food, too spicy. But, if I never did it, I'd never know. But I would just say this is also a time to find your own path in how you want to create your dating life, your romantic life, and take authority over your life in this realm as well.
Yeah. I remember one of my old mentors said a great way to find out what you want is to get clear on what you don't want. And that is from the great Dov Baron,
Oh,
as you have met.
love him. Thank you so much for the introduction. Oh my God, he's so generous. That man has been so generous. There are very few people I know that say, "Hey, I just got this on-camera spot. I recommended you. I mean, he's amazing, amazing. So thank you so much. Work, I've had a chance to meet him. You've met him in person.
No, not yet, not yet. Maybe one day. I mean, I started listening to his audios. I think it was about 2007, and then for a number of years, I was kind of obsessed with all this stuff, and then he kind of moved more into the corporate side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, real powerhouse of information, and from England as well, with a
Yeah,
unique
yeah,
accent to go with it.
yeah, 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 exactly.
So
Exactly.
another, and this follows on from the first one, is that people, some people can end up in a position where they're constantly ending up with people who are unavailable. What, what would your what are your thoughts on that, Susan, for these people?
Well, first of all, I'd say don't blame yourself because the way the dating market is nowadays, it's not like people are truthful. So we have a lot of this hot and cold. Okay, going back to what you said, I cannot tell you how many times I hear the same story, slightly different words, different factors. He, she came on full force. I love you. I want to be with you. This is great. I've never been like, then poof. And so we proceed in partnership, you know, with thinking, I'm available. Certainly you're available too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been a rude awakening that not everybody is playing the same way, or that they're whimsical, or that, as you said, the paradox of choice is so profound that you looked good for that month, and now you kind of lost your luster because this new thing is trotting by. So we tend to make the person feel guilty for what is happening to them in their dating life. And I think that at our well-meaning friends and family, the case in point, I was dating a guy, came on hot and heavy. Suddenly he disappeared. It was like Valentine's Day. We were supposed to go out. I texted him, whatever. I just want to be ready. Didn't hear from him 2 weeks. And he knew he had dropped off flowers at my apartment building. So he knew where the apartment building was. We went to the same gym. He had my telephone number. You can find me on the internet. You can call my publicist. You can call the publishing house, whatever. So it's not like there's not a million ways to meet me. So I tell my girlfriend, she's like, oh, that's easy. You slept with him. I said, I didn't sleep with him. She said, oh, well, then it's because you didn't sleep with him. I'm like, either way, he falls off the boards and it's my fault. So we always think that it's our fault that we did something wrong because they didn't continue to pursue. And I'm at a point that 80% of the time, I don't think it's that case. Yes, you and I are very involved in self growth, and you and I are very aware of our participation and our conscious interaction. And that is something that we ask people to do as well. We try and highlight the benefits. However, in today's dating world, you can get thrown off a ride. You thought you were fully on board and not know why. And you know what? It isn't you. It isn't you. It is the paradox of choice. And people are whimsical and they're not held to a standard of, ooh, that's impolite. Why would he pursue and then drop her? He ghosted her. If that was done 20 years ago, you'd think the person had had a serious accident. Now it's just normal. So there is
Yeah.
no excuse for bad behavior. I don't care. It's not like you enter a new time period and like, oh, now bad behavior is acceptable. It's not
Yeah.
acceptable, right? So
Yeah,
that's,
this is very true, isn't it? Just to
yeah,
interject, hey, in the past it was, oh, something's happened, I'm
right.
concerned, I'm on edge here, what's going on? And then
Yeah,
now it's just, no, it's just how it is often.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not convinced when you ask your friends if somebody that you're seeing is very hot on you and suddenly disappears, the first thing you're going to do is blame yourself. You're going to wonder what you did wrong. Then your friends are going to help you because they're going to tell you did something wrong. So Susan and maybe Oliver agree with me here that perhaps it's not you. Perhaps it really is them. No, it's
Yeah,
you. It's not
yeah,
me.
yeah. See, I think an interesting point as well is just kind of in today's world, because it is so normal, just just like a child, isn't it? Pick up one toy, I don't want to now pick up the next. It's very impulsive, it's very surface level. So if
Yeah.
someone's coming in from that angle
Yeah.
and they just yap into you for a while, then, oh no, since someone else, then it's not really about them, because they've never really had the chance to get to know them. They're just picking them up and dumping them, and it's just the state they're in, isn't it?
Exactly. And then to address many of the articles that you write, what about the person who compulsively chooses
Yeah.
unavailable people? Because there are those kinds of people too. And you know much more about that because you delve into the history and the background. But there are people who continually choose people who are unavailable, go through the, oh, I can't believe it didn't work out. Oh my goodness, and I'm trying so hard. And there's a payoff there. There's a payoff that they're not seeing, or there's an habitual desire to try and correct your past in the present day. That mommy or daddy or somebody didn't love you and you can't fix it. I mean, it is what it is, right? And we keep trying to fix it in the future. So there are those cases where people will habitually choose these things and actually say, but I'm not doing this. I'm not. And they really are. So that's another level of awareness. And that's where a lot of your books would address the deeper underlying issues.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it? See, repetition compulsion, as they say.
Right.
Anyway, so another one, so it's almost like after this stage of where someone experiences a painful breakup. I mean, that I've been through a number of them myself, and it's not too pleasant. What kind of advice would you give to someone in that position there, in a lot of pain? What do you think?
Well, it's the price of love. I mean, I think we have to be realistic. Um, and this is why people don't love, and this is the big issue under the issue under the issue under whatever's going on, is that when you love, whether you love a dog that passes, a parent that dies, somebody who gets sick, you love anything, you will have both highs and lows, and they're equal. So you can't have a little of this and a lot of that. It doesn't work that way. It's an equation that's equal on both sides. And sometimes a painful breakup is more devastating because it is new love, and it's maybe our first love. And we have totally merged with this person. There were no boundaries. The ego boundaries are gone. You dive in head, you're experiencing this cocktail of drugs in your body and dopamine and all this, oxytocin. You're just like, oh, and then suddenly it's ripped away. And it's devastating because on first look, we fully believe we will never feel that again. We attribute these incredible feelings to the individual, to that specific individual. And that is why breakups hurt so much. We are convinced that they created the love because we didn't have it before they showed up. And once they leave, they take that love with them, and we will never have it again. And not only that, we're even more bereft, we're void of loving ourselves, and we're just in mourning for this incredible feeling. So this might take a couple generations of living, but as we mature and we start to see through the mechanics of this, and we've been down this road a couple times, there comes the awareness, and I think the only relief is that the love that we thought and attributed only to this person is actually our love. Had nothing to do with them. The end of the story is it's kind of like they're rather insignificant. The only love we ever can experience or do experience is the love that we have within us, our capacity to love. And the day I realized that was the day I went, wow. But I was not young. And it took a lot of effort and a lot of analysis and a lot of observation. And maybe books have said this before, but nobody said it to me the way I needed to understand it. and I had to experience it until I could stand up. The observer was watching the human go through all this, going, "Girl, what are you doing? You know, you still have this outpouring." It's like when the breakup happens and you're still mourning for them, you suddenly have to look at this feeling that you've got for this person and say, "Wait a minute, I'm feeling all these feelings. They're not here. Oh my goodness, they have nothing to do with this. These are my feelings. I'm feeling the profound nature of my own feelings. The person was the catalyst, but this is not something you can tell a 20-year-old girl or guy. This might not be something that it intellectually makes sense to a 35 or 40-year-old, but not really. I think it's something that happens after years of information have compacted and you've been down the road a number of times. You go, oh, now you're still going to hurt, but it's going to be, you're going to have authority over yourself. So that's my way to help somebody through a breakup, breakthrough, whatever.
I suppose it is a breakup, and it can lead to a breakthrough with the right approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is similar to the last question. So someone has gone through a divorce, they're in the last, later stage of their life, and they're wondering if they will find another mate again. What would you say to someone like that?
That's a very different experience because it is so profoundly unsettling. Your home, your friends, if you have children, a divorce is destabilizing on every single level. Plus, it's the death of a dream, and that is my language that I've used to describe what happens. You had a dream with this person. We're going to be partners. We're going to do this, and you are actually mourning the death of this dream. Again, the person is incidental. They were the vehicle to get you there. You will not want the same kind of person. It may take you time to get over the separation. But I think what's more devastating is the amount of time, energy, and chaos that a divorce creates in your day-to-day life, which doesn't help you get through the process. Because every day you're reminded of your mate. You have to see your mate if you have children. In some countries, you're not allowed to move too far away. In America, you can, but in some countries, like in Spain, you're not allowed to you're not allowed to leave so that there is not joint custody. So it's, will you ever find love again? When you can get settled, when you can acquire your new sense of who you are after all of this, you will find love if you want to. And, you will find somebody who has gone through the experience you have, or who's somebody who's sympathetic toward it. And you will want now different things, because the person that we choose as a parent, the perspective, like this would be good husband material, she'd be a good mom, might be a lot different than the partner that you want as a companion and a lover at that juncture of your life, when those needs have been taken care of. So there could even be a benefit, because chances are that once you've had kids, and if they're, by the time they're in high school or whatever, the last thing you've had is the ability to be romantic and think of each other as lovers, because you've been so busy with your roles as parents and taking care of a home and building that environment. So there could be a blessing waiting for you, and this was your liberation. That's another way to look at it.
Yeah, very good point. I suppose this is it, isn't it? That stage when they got together, they're looking for certain things, and then as time has gone on, as you're saying, especially if they've had kids and they're thinking, well, I've got different needs. And what I needed then is what I need now, and it can be the as you often say, talking about evolution. It can be the next stage of their evolution.
Yeah.
As a human being, isn't it?
So I have a girlfriend who got engaged for the first time in her life at age 49. And her partner had been divorced from his wife for, 5 or 6 years. They were both older, and they knew what they wanted, My girlfriend always wanted to be married and have kids, wake up next to the same man. And she went through a lot of dating and a lot of guys that, but she didn't, she was beautiful and successful and fun and cool. And, so people were like, why are you still single? But as she matured more, she became a little pickier. And who they chose for these chapters of their lives are very different than the choices they both made in their 20s or 30s. So there is a bit of wisdom behind the rationale that as we age, we do get pickier, which is weird, okay? Because it's kind of like we have fewer options at that point that are available. You have fewer people that are available, and you're now more selected. But you also know yourselves more, and the relationships formed later in life tend to last longer because you've gone through all this stuff. You've gone through your massive changes, and you are pretty much who you are. So that's a really good thing for love the second time around.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I suppose
Yeah.
it's a bit like when you're young, you're trying this out, you're trying that, just different hobbies, and then you get older, it's like, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is what I'm into, and I'm not into all that other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
The next question kind of taps into one of your books, and that is, what advice would you have for a woman who is looking to date a younger man?
Oh boy, that's loaded. And it's loaded because it starts up here. First of all, you have to give yourself permission that it's okay, because you're going to still have, even some 20 years after I've written the book, you're going to have people in your community that are going to judge you, but mostly you will judge yourself. So I have to say this is simply a preference. Now, like any preference, it may not be your thing, but if it is your thing and you find that you're in a dating market where the men that you're meeting are too kind of stick in the mud, or their mentality doesn't reflect yours, or they want you to be a lesser version of yourself, they want more of an accessory to their lives, and you're like, dude, I got my own life, okay? I'm not going to be smaller to make you feel bigger. Then, and you are interested in a young man, one, the biggest obstacle will be the way you look at yourself, because we have had centuries of programming that have convinced us we are only worth our youth and our beauty. And you can't turn on a TV or open a magazine, and no matter how, pro whatever, pro sex, pro aging, pro whatever, pro fat, pro this, pro that, it's still there. It takes a long time to eradicate these biases. And so you have to look for a resonance. Just because he's younger doesn't mean he's going to be right. The younger generation will probably, if you're more forward thinking, replicate the way you think about life already. So that, I know that's my draw. I never fit with I like older people because I'm an only child and I'm adopted. So my parents took me to cocktail parties from the time I was like a toddler, right? And so I only heard adult conversation. Then when I try and speak to kids my age, my language and my vocabulary was just, they didn't know what I was talking about. And then as I got older, I kind of split the difference and enjoyed being with much younger people. So my playmates, friends, are all 15 to 12, 10, at least 10 years younger than myself, because just mentally, I resonate with that generation. So if you are of that nature, you are really looking for resonance. In any mate, you're looking to connect. We were talking about connection before, but you want somebody that with whom you can be yourself and with whom you feel free, and a younger partner might be for you, and you will oftentimes push them away because you're thinking, oh gosh, they're going to look at the back of my legs, it's got little wobbly bits, or what if they see my wrinkles, and the best information I can give a woman is that, girlfriend, he already sees that. You're not hiding a thing. Don't think, his eyes see a lot better than yours. And so I guarantee you, he has noticed and he doesn't care. So for the younger men that prefer older women, they do so because they're looking for content, emotional, mental. They're looking for, no games. They have a litany of things that they all say, independent of where they come from. They want a woman that they just don't want the hassle of. She doesn't know what she wants today, and then she maybe wants this, and she can't communicate. They want to know what they're getting, and they don't mind. It's an upfront trade-off that they already see. So your fears are unfounded, but you're going to have to fight them, and we all do. So that's just the way that one is.
Yeah, very, very good points. Yeah. Yeah. So now I'd like to talk about each of your books, Susan, and to touch upon the first one, Allowing Magnificence. I remember reading this and just thinking how deep it was, going into, as I said in the beginning, about the self-knowledge, and it was very much speaking my language, this book, because it was real meat about basically shining the light, being a guide, giving people the insights to allow them to get a better connection with themselves. So if you could just give a brief summary about that book and just what led you to write this book. How did it come about?
In 2004, I sat down and wrote about 1,000 pages on a computer of a book that is unreleased called The Greater Design. And I was so tired of hearing people say, oh, everything happens for a reason. I thought, don't even say that if you can't find a reason for everything, okay? Because it sounded like a blow-off line. And so what I really wanted, if you believe that life is purposeful, and if you believe that life is here to assist us, which I believe, that life, the duty of life is to create life, okay? I think that's what it's all about. Then we better find the good stuff in all the bad stuff that happens. We've got to find the gem in the garbage, or life will take us down. So the thing is, life will always bring about challenges. So it was twofold. It was allowing our magnificence means letting your own light shine, but not dampening. Every day life is going to bring you chaos, challenges. Deal with it. It's life. That's what it does. That's how it creates. I call it. It's how the sand creates the pearl. It's that irritation.
Yeah.
So let's make peace with it instead of fighting it, and let's use its energy to get through the thing faster. Meaning, if an event occurs to me and I'm like, oh, this is horrible, the first thing I've got to do is go, okay, what's trying to happen here? How can I get on board with it? Let me work with life and see if I can find the answer to this. So I wanted people to be able to diagnose chaos, find the blessing in real time as it's happening, not 20 years later, like, yeah, if I'd stayed with Stan, I wouldn't have had my daughter. I wouldn't have discovered I'm a poet. I mean, I don't want you to do it 20 years from now. So that's what that book was trying to reveal. It was trying to reveal that we are inherently whole, complete, and born with what I call the best computer ever. We are inherently connected to truth and to our greater truth. And our higher self already knows. And the minute you know that, you stop listening to everybody else and start listening to yourself, because I promise you, you were given the greatest guidance in the world, but it's very confusing because everything is pulling us outside of ourselves. But inside, you've got a homing device that's going to guide you. And if we can start to trust that and start to trust the universe, our life will still have chaos, we will still have pain, we will still cry, we will still have challenges, but we will be able to manage and flourish. So that was the point of that book.
Yeah, you saying that reminds me of martial arts, whereas you're parrying a punch or something, you're going with it instead of, it's old, what you resist persists and all that. So if you're working with the energies, you're saying stuff still happens, but you're using it to your advantage, correct?
Right, right, exactly. I think, is it judo where you use the, or I don't know which one it is, but somebody will know.
Karate, or
Oh,
reminds me of qigong when I did that. So kind of the energy again.
yeah, 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 exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And what about this other book then, Susan? Is that ever going to come out, or?
You know, I can barely get through one day at a time. Honestly, Oliver, I do 7 days a week, 16 hours, and I've been doing this since about 2011. So, Allowing Magnificence was one section. It was called The Self. And I
Yeah.
took it, and I'm a precious writer. I take forever with the language. You know, I've got audio booklets that are almost all done. I just want to re-edit them. It's just, I've done so many consultations, so many interviews, and so I'm trying to restructure my life so that I have time to get all these things out. But I promise you, they are sitting in my computer.
So it could be like a trilogy. It'd be a bit like Lord of the Rings, three separate things there.
Well, I did a book called Breakup Triage: The Cure for Heartache.
Yeah, yeah, I've got that down there.
I did that as an audio booklet because I thought, well, people are so busy they don't have time to read. And I did, in the title, it says part one. And I did that on purpose to make myself do part two. But it's been a couple of years and people are, where's part two? Where's part two? And you know what? I think I just have to move faster. I always want things to be really just perfect when I put them out. And maybe you're the same kind of writer, but sometimes just the information is enough. But I really, uh, Breakup Triage: The Cure for Heartache is an audio booklet. It's an ebook, but I really prefer people listen to the audiobook. And it's about the very thing we were talking about. It's the first 7 steps that I've isolated when you have a breakup. It's that initial, oh my God, this is happening. What do I do? It's when I feel that people are emotionally bleeding out. They need triage. And you know, people say, oh, you have a formula. And I'm like, I don't have a formula. Everything is a la carte. I work with each person independently. And they said, no, no, you will understand if you take a look at the course that you put through people through, that there is kind of a system. So I started to think about all the breakup counseling that I do, and I thought, oh my goodness, I do kind of have steps along the way. So I just got very clear on what those steps were, and I put them into that audio booklet. So that's another item that I have.
Excellent. It's all there, isn't it? And now people in there on the train or the bus or the tube or they're driving. It's so much easier, isn't it? People are busy and just sitting down to read a book. I mean, doesn't really happen for a lot of people. So great idea.
Thank you.
But you saying about,
It's in my voice, so I wanted them to hear me talking to them, which is
yeah,
kind of like my little private session. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like speaking to someone personally, isn't it? So you can really get your point across in the right tone. But you saying, Susan, about you like to get it perfect. I just get an idea and I basically just write it down and that's it. That's how I can write so many, because
Fantastic.
I just get it out.
That's fantastic. I know. I have a friend, Peter Shankman, prolific, I mean, huge in PR. He'll just be on a plane to China and just like write a book. And I'm just like, oh my God. I belabor it and I go back and I reread it and I don't have time to do that. I just gotta, you know, my girlfriend here, Karina, I'm in the desert right now. I have a home in the Southwest. And you know, she's like, just crank them out, Susan, just what are you doing? And I'm like, you're right, you're right, you're right. So I wish I were more like you. You're so prolific.
And what kind of books does this guy write?
Who's that?
This guy is saying on his way to China. What kind of?
Peter is all about PR and branding yourself and things like that. Yeah, Peter Shankman, incredible. He's always in the news, and he's here in the U.S. But he's just always talking about companies and branding and publicity and where you're going and sales and marketing and all the different angles. But he'll crack one out on an airplane. I'm like, how do you do that? He's like, well, I had time to write. And I said, okay.
Yeah, when it's there, it's got to come out. So,
Yeah.
and then this older women, younger men book. I mean, how did that come about? Was that again similar catalyst to the other one?
That was the first one, and I was not a writer. I was in broadcast television. I was in financial news. What we now have in the U.S. is CNBC. I was in the original version of that. It was called Financial News Network, and I was financial news. I had my own show called Corporate Profiles, and I had collars up to here and dresses down to my mid calf. And New York was a very dangerous place all throughout the 70s and 80s. And I came there right after college. And after weathering the 80s, I was like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. So I built a home in the country, about an hour outside of New York. Beautiful area on a golf course. And then I gave up my apartment and moved there full time. And I started dating a younger man. The first younger man, 16 years younger, no problem. His parents were educated. He'd gone to boarding school. And I don't mean that that's anything about that, but I'm just saying the parents were more open-minded and they'd been around the block and they'd seen a lot of life and they were able to assess me as an individual rather than just blanket statement, you're older, that's no good. The second boyfriend that I had out there, his mother was younger than I was. And she had a shotgun wedding in high school where the young man was forced to marry her. And her world was very small. And she wanted to control every aspect of her world. And she did not want this partnership. Now, I was with her son for 7 years. We lived together. And the last 3 or 4, we were not together. We were on and off because the mother I don't know how she did it to this day, Oliver. She would have his buddies from school show up and say, I slept with her. Yeah, I had oral sex behind the supermarket. And they would tell him this. And what's this kid to believe? And so she was tearing him apart. She denied him access to the family. It was a her or us. He tried as best he could, and it actually literally mentally tore him apart. And I couldn't stand it. I sold my home. I moved back to New York. I got out of that little community. And a friend who'd watched me go through this, because it was my daily chaos. You can imagine an entire little community believing all these horrible things about you. Oh, and I was a witch. I cast spells on people. That's why he was interested in me. Okay.
God.
So
Have you still got that ability now?
oh, absolutely. I do it all the time. I cast spells on people. So, I'd have girls leave the supermarket line if they were like college girls, like his age. They were afraid to interact with me. Like I'd be trying to buy eggs and maybe some oranges, and they'd leave the line. And I'm like, why is everybody leaving? It was horrible, horrible. There wasn't a day I cried in my magnificent. I built my dream home, and so a casual comment by a colleague of mine. She said, "Oh, we should write a book," because she had always been with younger men. But she had the wisdom to do it in New York City where nobody cares. I did it in the country where it was like Appalachia. It was like, it was rural country. These people didn't go to the city. They didn't know people. It was so rural. I wanted the opposite of New York, but it was also the thinking was, antiquated, like by centuries. So that's what was the catalyst for that book. And then it was trying to, the reason the book gained such popularity was that it was kind of in the conversation of that time period, came out around 2000. And so it was a big deal. Women were having relationships with younger men like Cher, but it was always viewed as a sexual preference. And that's what society will oftentimes do to minimize a partnership, whether it's same sex or it's something or interracial, they'll or age difference, they'll make it, oh, it's about the sex. And that's a way to reduce it, to not give it validity. And my book was controversial because it was about love. It was about love. Love and your partner at least 10 or more years younger than yourself. Now, they could understand me wanting to have sex with a pool boy. They did not understand me wanting to move somebody into my home that was my real partner. And when that was the issue, I had an issue with that. Because, when you find love and you find resonance, people should not stand in your way. So that's that. And then that got a ton of press. And so it kind of led me to where I am today. It gave me an accidental career, Oliver, that I never intended, believe me.
Yeah, it's like being a trailblazer, isn't it? I remember in the beginning, I had a website called The Accidental Writer. It's just a bit, these things kind of just happen, don't they? Yeah. It's just not planned and strange.
But isn't that the beauty of how sometimes life, through chaos, drama,
Yeah,
unbelievable pain, was birthed this awareness that I'm actually kind of good at this and I enjoy it, and a
uh,
whole new career. And Oliver, I wouldn't have chosen this. I wouldn't have spent years in college if I knew I was going to do this thing. I wouldn't. This was like me, private Susan. This wasn't like public Susan. So I think it's really beautiful how sometimes life will guide us through a series of events to where we really need to be to make our greatest contribution, you know?
yeah, very well said. Very well said. So, how is the best way to contact you, Susan? So, if someone's looking to work with you personally or to read more of your work, or I know now you mainly do videos, like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
machine. You're like, well, I am to writing, you are to videos, churning these videos out.
Oh, I do them in a second because I'm not precious about the language. That's why I could do videos so quickly. Yeah. Yeah, it's so much easier for me to just talk off the cuff. My website is susanwinter.net, and I got there late. There's another, yeah, Susan Winter. It's not a unique name, as it turns out. So that on the consultation page will tell you how to reach me. I use a couple of different vehicles. I use my website where you can book a consultation session. You can read the articles, see videos. There's all the interviews that I do. I have press almost every day. And then there's also another vehicle that I use called Magnify, which is an app. It's a free app. You can use it for Android or iPhone, and it is where you can contact me for consultation by the minute. And I do a couple hours most every day because sometimes people, they don't want to commit to a whole 45 minutes, or they don't want to commit to an entire day with Susan. So this way I have different price structures for different categories, and I love that. And it's great. So that's how people get a hold of me.
So, by the sounds of it, then, Susan, I mean, you've got the one-to-ones. Someone can spend a day with you. And
Yep.
what about any courses? Do you ever provide any courses or public speaking engagements these days? I mean, what's the deal with that?
I do. This is the year that I'm deciding to do collaboration and events. I know my thing, but Oliver, I don't know like how to set it up and make it go, like who to talk to and what to do. But I've been aligned with a couple of colleagues. One is a matchmaker and the other is a lady in beauty. And they are able to do these things where I come along and we have conversations with other groups of women or whatever. And I will be over the next year changing a lot of the structure of how I coach. And I will be moving into monthly packages. They'll be at a higher price point, but it's incredibly intense because I'll be working with somebody twice a week, and it's to get real results in 30 days. No more wondering, is there hope? Can I fix this? You're going to know. We're going to get to the bottom of it. It's going to be a yes or a no. It's going to be better, or it's going to be we've tried everything. And I'm doing that in part because I had 529 clients last year. I cannot tell you. And that doesn't even mean how many sessions I had with each client. So therefore, I didn't have time. I didn't have time to write a book. I didn't have time to do this. I didn't have time to have a life. So I'm trying to eliminate that and condense it and work with a much smaller audience to allow myself time to get out then in front of others. So it will look, what I have now will look different in time, and how I go about my work. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it reminds me, I was speaking to a friend, I think it might have been last year, and I said to him about would he work with people in other countries? I said, it seems like a good idea to fly out. And he says, and he made a good point, something I didn't think about. The trouble is, if you do that, then there's all the time you have to spend to get there, and all the time
Yeah.
you're traveling, you might not be able to do anything else. So he pointed out that he might not necessarily be on board with that. So thank you, Susan, for taking the time of your busy schedule. I'm very grateful that our paths have crossed and that we've been able to do this interview. And I hope people have really got a lot out of this interview today. Thank you.
Well, I have to thank you because your commentary, when I was just learning how to, the thing was at the time period that I had my website, it was all about interacting with your audience and doing commentary, right? And that they would write you back. And your commentary was like, when I read it, I went, oh, 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 oh. It's so, it was like, it was so great. It was so intelligent. It was so deep. I'm like, oh my God, I love this guy. Oh my goodness. I can't believe you gave me hope because, I didn't know this end of the industry. I was still kind of new in what I did. I wasn't even coaching then. And I felt a kindred spirit and such an intelligent, profound uh, perspective. And it was just, you really helped me on my journey. And maybe you didn't know that. So I have to tell you that. So thank you for that, Oliver.
Yeah, well, it's a mutual experience there, because I just remember that it's a bit like you can be good at something, and you might have friends or strangers say that's really good, but they might not really be an expert at what you do, or they might not be in the same field. But then when you have someone who is very good at that or in the same field and they say, well, that's really good, then it's like, it means so much more. And that was what your feedback was like for me, because I've been doing it. People saying, yeah, this is good, this is assists me, but I hadn't had anyone who was in a similar place who was doing a similar thing who said that's really good. So that really kind of, it was like I've made it. I've hit the big time. So I don't forget the people who have assisted me.
Oh, you have been so generous, and I'm so grateful that you put all of your work into books so people can find them all over the world, and that is great. And I know you've got a number of them, and they're sitting in my bookcase in New York City, as a matter of fact. I thank you, Oliver, for your lovely contribution, who you are as a gentleman, who you are as a writer, and who you are as a colleague. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really do appreciate sharing with you anytime I get a chance to talk to you, because we don't really do this too much. I don't think we've had a lot of chats on Skype.
No, it's all new. I think there'll be more in the future. I hope.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, thank you, Susan, and keep up the good work, and hopefully you have more time to yourself as time goes by to enjoy more golf and all the other things that you enjoy doing.
Thank you. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank
Love
you.
talking to you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.